So the First Descendant has a number of like these really hard gear checks built into the game, sort of baked into it, that are going to serve as these hills you have to climb, these checkpoints that you have to hurdle over before the game sort of eases off the gas a little bit. It's kind of like you have to break through that wall just to get to the next section. Usually it comes in the form of a void intercept battle of some kind against a Colossus. And, it's just sort of a way of keeping you gated off from the next tier of the game. So a lot of people have this struggle where they get stuck at a certain point in the game and they can't really break through that wall. So in this video, I'm going to give you some basic tips on how to overcome those obstacles so you can get into those next regions, get some new stuff unlocked, start unlocking some higher tiered gear as well. So the very first thing you're going to want to look at if you're kind of at a stopping point, you're kind of stuck, first thing you want to look at is your reactor. So this is definitely one of the key pieces that gets overlooked in the game. In fact, I was looking at some stats, and according to the the stats in the game, only 3%, 3 out of every 100 players, have actually ever enhanced their reactor. This is definitely where you want to start. So selecting a reactor is an important part of what you're going to do. You definitely want to pick one that is the same element affinity as the Descendant that you're playing. So non-element affinity, if you're something like Ajax, you want an electricity one. If you're Bunny, you want a toxic one. If you're Freyna, etc., you get the idea. But then beyond that, you're going to want to make sure that you have the items equipped in your build that sort of ramp the reactor up. So it'll have its own requirements there, little check boxes for you to check off, like, oh, do I need to equip a tactical weapon? Do I need to equip a shotgun for this particular one to work better? And then beyond that, you're definitely going to want to use ion accelerators to enhance it. It basically just gives it a giant bump up in its stats, and you can do that 2 times per reactor. So in order to do that, you're going to want to go to Anais in the research lab and speak to her, and go to the enhancement materials tab, and you want to research ion accelerators. They don't take long to craft. Once they're done, you can head to the workbench over in the weapons store. Once you're here, you can upgrade your reactor up to 2 times, and you're going to get some pretty sizable boosts to the performance of your reactor when you do that. Lots of extra skill power, so your skills are going to be doing much more damage while you're out there on the battlefield. So that's definitely the very first place I recommend you start, is take a good hard look at your reactor and see what you can do to improve it. Definitely be scanning throughout the battlefields that you've already been to and looking at the potential rewards that can drop from those activities. So if you need an upgrade to your reactor, find an activity, a mission, an operation, anything that has a reactor as a potential drop, as a potential reward for the character that you're playing. Next thing you want to do is make sure that all your weapons are up to the highest maximum level for you personally. So a lot of times you're just swapping weapons in and out as you get a higher leveled one, but you definitely want to stick to weapons that you have higher proficiencies on when you're playing against these Colossus fights. You definitely want to make sure that you're enhancing them with the modules that will make them perform better, their specific tasks. So what you're going to want to do is like save even your blue drops. If you get a blue drop that's a really high level, you can actually raise the level of your favorite gun by similar thing. You go to Anais in the research lab, you research phase exchangers. These are used to level up your weapons. So then you can use the phase exchangers to take a bad weapon you don't want that's a high level, and you consume that gun and put it into the one you do like that you have a higher proficiency level on. You've got better modules on this one, and now you've just raised the level of your favorite gun so that it can perform against these Colossus fights. Some weapons actually have a perk that will say it does extra damage to Colossuses. So maybe you want to set those aside, level up your proficiency with them in a horde mode, and then infuse them so that they're a higher level and ready to go for that Colossus fight that's keeping you from the next region of the game. The third thing I want to talk about is definitely modules. So modules are dramatically going to change the performance of your Descendant and of your weapons. So I start with my Descendant itself, and let me tell you that it's better to have a handful of really ramped up modules than to have like 8 or 9 level 1 modules that haven't been enhanced at all. Those are going to give you really small bonuses across the board, sort of a jack of all trades, master of none, but the gains that you get by upgrading your modules are huge. I'm talking like tens of percentages, 20s, 30% more skill power damage on the battlefield. That is a massive change rather than just having 2% extra shields. So think hard about what you want to sacrifice. Maybe you want to be a glass cannon. Maybe you really want to upgrade heavily on your skill power modules. Like I've really full sent with Freyna, for example, on doing more skill damage, but also having my skills cast a wider radius in the attack. So I can really do crowd control quite well. So my Venom Baptism puddle of venom that I lay down is not small anymore. It's a very big. It's like 60% wider than the standard version of it. So now it casts a much wider net. I'm spreading more corrosive damage throughout the battlefield because of it. So these are going to have a really big impact on the way that you play the game and a big impact on your damage output especially. So definitely start with your Descendant, look at those modules, start swapping some of those level 1 blue ones out, and instead start really enhancing the better ones that have a direct impact on the way that your Descendant plays the game. Same thing applies to your weapon modules. Go ahead and inspect the weapon that you like the most. See what modules you have in your inventory, especially the purple ones are going to have bigger benefits to you on the battlefield. Upgrade those instead of just using the blue one that gives you more attack damage. It's like, I know that's an easy thing to do, but maybe consider what it might look like if you dropped that in full sent on critical hit damage, especially if you're fighting against a Colossus and you want to break those breakable regions much faster. That's a great place to invest. The fourth thing I want to talk about is paying attention to things like weaknesses and resistances. This is something that's very easy to overlook. You just turn the brain off, play the game, shoot things until they die. But don't forget that you can scan enemies to see what they're strong against, what they're weak to, and what kind of damage they're going to be pumping out. And this also applies to the Colossus fights. Before you even start it, at the inspection screen, it will tell you, for example, hey, the Devourer, avoid trying to use corrosive toxic damage against the Devourer. He's extremely resistant to it. You want to use electricity. You want to use piercing damage. So I got up to the Devourer, and at that point, my highest level Descendant was actually Freyna, who is entirely built around toxic damage. My guns have toxic damage on them too, and I was like, well, I kind of screwed myself there. So another thing you can do, obviously, is diversify. At this point, you probably have a couple of Descendants unlocked at least. You can always just swap to an alternate character and start leveling them up as well. Go to the Horde mode, use the same weapons you want to use against the Colossus and level up your proficiencies there in the Horde mode while you're leveling up your alternate Descendants as well. You want to be able to diversify what you can bring to the battlefield, because I don't want to show up as a Freyna against the Devourer and have this thing resisting all the damage that I'm putting out against it. And at that point, I'm not really helping my team as much as I could be. So better to level up my other characters, like my Ajax, like my Bunny especially, who has electric damage, is going to be really strong against the Devourer. So it's definitely really important to level up your other Descendants as well, so that you're ready for whatever resistances and weaknesses this next boss might have. So there you go. There are my 5 best tips for getting over that hump, breaking through that wall if you're at a point where you're stuck in the game, right? Look at your Reactor. Look at your weapon transmission options. Check out your modules and upgrade those. Pay attention to weaknesses and resistances, and level up your alternate characters. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, leave a like on the videos. That's the best free way to support the content right here on YouTube. Big shout out to the lots of new subs that just decided to check out the channel. You found it organically. I know most of the people who have been visiting the channel this past week, as I've done some First Descendant content, have come from search engine hits. So, hey, welcome. I'm glad you found the channel. Glad you found the content. Feel free to kick your shoes off and stay a while. Hit the subscribe button. We'd love to see you around more often. All right. Have a great weekend, my friends. Bye-bye.